there's no shortage of names here at the top of this field. I'll start with Rory McIlroy. He's been kind of pinballed around in the world rankings recently. 3 starts ago, he was the number 1 player in the world. 2 starts ago, he was the number 2 player in the world. 1 start ago, after his most recent start, he was the 3rd ranked player in the world. So he's got every spot on the podium taken care of in his last 3 starts. Only Rory has a disappointing Phoenix and Riviera by finishing inside like the top 30 of both of them, but he's looking to get his footing at a place he's generally dominated at.
World number 3, Rory McIlroy. You have to wonder what's wrong with him, right?
What's gone wrong?
Golly.
He's broken.
Unbelievable. But it was kind of just some, putting mishaps there on the West Coast. Tee to green, he seemed fine and dandy. I think he was leading tee to green halfway through the Genesis. Before he kind of skirted off there on the weekend. And like you said, this has kind of been his playground throughout the years. No finish worse than T27 in 8 prior appearances, I think, 2018 win, and just always seems to factor. And it's just a driver's paradise. You think about when Bryson kind of overpowered this place. You have Rory, you have Tiger winning here 8 times. So if there's ever a spot for Rory McIlroy to, I guess, relatively get right, he still has 4 wins in his last 15 worldwide starts, which is kind of good. It would be this week at Bay Hill.
Well, just to jump in here, I think there is he hasn't played poorly, but compared to your Morikawas and your Homas and your Rahms, he hasn't played particularly great. He won in Dubai, which was good. That's not a, tremendous worldwide event. So I think it's like a decently kind of big stretch for him these next, 4 weeks before the Masters. Cause you got this, you got players, you got match play. And really, I mean, for him, it's the Masters is the one that matters. So how is he playing leading into that? I think this next 4 weeks is kind of big for Rory McIlroy.
Yeah, just committed to the match play officially, I saw on Twitter. I think last year was the match play the week before the Masters last year? No, they would never do that. Right?
No.
But
he missed the cut at the Texas Open.
But he did. Okay, he did play the week prior though, which is something he hadn't done historically.
Yeah, and that was the week that I think for the Masters he changed his ball. Right, he changed the ball after the Texas Open because he was. I forgot what the deal was, spin or I don't know. He went back to an old, I think TaylorMade TPX ball.
Yeah, he went back to a ball that spun more to make the wedge.
There you go.
Pretty good. Mark, you've once said that Rory McIlroy could roll out of bed and finish inside the top 10 at Eastlake. I would argue same can be said about here at Bay Hill. Let me read you just the last handful of years. T13, T10, T5, T6, victory, T4. We've got the graphic up on the screen. This is a place where the DNA of Rory McIlroy certainly thrives.
Yeah, despite his, as Patrick calls it, slump. I had to battle really hard with myself not to pick him in one and done this week. I was on hand for back in the day radio when he won back in 17, I think it was, and he put together a 64 that I think I've said it on the show before. That is probably one of the best rounds I've ever got to call in my life. Just the way he played and stuff. And I remember saying to him afterwards, and now I'm going to share this with you guys and probably skewer myself. But as I was about to interview him, my producer comes in my ear and he goes, Rory led in every strokes gain, major strokes gain category to win this tournament. And he wasn't even in the final group, just bear in mind, okay? And so I pointed it out to him, and I remember him saying in the interview, and he looks down at my clipboard and he goes, well, that's good. I guess that's pretty good. And then he said, but you know what? The golf course just fits me. And I feel comfortable around here. And it's something about the shape of the holes. A lot of the holes around this place, there's trouble down the left-hand side. I mean, by my count, there's like 7 of them. So almost, I could argue that half of the holes have all the trouble on the left. And Rory likes to draw it. But a lot of holes turn from right to left, kind of in Arnold Palmer style. So when he sets up on the tee, he feels like he can swing away, even though there's trouble down the left-hand side. And man, that 64 he shot, it was freaking virtuoso. And he drove it great, hit his irons well. He just seems to read the greens down there well too. So look, he's an attractive prospect at Bay Hill this week, even though he hasn't had his best stuff just yet.
It reminds me a bit, Kyle, of so I must admit I finally got around to watching the 8th episode of Full Swing, which I had been putting off because I felt once I had watched it, I was done. Right. I wanted to look forward to it. And your bucket hat is just pure top notch stuff.
Yeah, my wife loved that.
I love it.
I think her response was, "You're going to be in 200 million homes, and that's the thing that you chose to wear on your head." So that was good.
It was beautiful. I rewound it a handful of times. The other thing is Rory kind of talked about playing with freedom and what that allows him to do, especially when it was the Tour Championship and he was at times 9 shots back. I think he made a triple out of the gate on hole number 1. And when he gets to play with a little bit of freedom, when he gets that bounce in his step, it's really scary stuff for everybody. But that's the sick part about golf, right? Is you can't trick yourself into playing with freedom.
Yeah. No, you can't. And I think Rory has reached the stage in his career where the freedom for him in non-majors comes pretty easily. Like, I don't know that there's a non-major that's really that big of a deal. I mean, obviously they're all competitive and they've become, especially this year, really, really good events. But I don't think there's anything that really like mentally affects him in non-majors. And so that's why you want to see, again, over these next 3 or 4 weeks. Like, I was just looking at his history at Genesis and Phoenix. It's not amazing, but these were 2 of his kind of lower half performances. If you just look at his stops at both of those events. So, all that to say, like, I think he needs to get a little bit of momentum going into the Masters, because that is where he's mentally affected. That is where you see more of the lack of freedom that he plays with show up. And I think he needs to mentally and physically be like really kind of feeling himself going in. I mean, let's say he wins 2 of the next 3, and then all of a sudden it's like you have so much momentum and so much mental like confidence going into Augusta, which he hasn't. Has he really had that? I guess when he won the Players in 2019, maybe.
Well, you know what else? I mean, if he wins 2 of his next 3, you know what else that will create is a lot of expectation and a lot of Rory McIlroy career Grand Slam conversation.
Yeah, maybe that works the other way. Maybe that's bad for him. I don't know. But I'm excited for this week. I'm excited for players. I think that, just to gather all these guys, and we said it coming into this year, right? We said the thing that we were looking forward to most was these elevated events. And I think, like Patrick said, you especially see it at post Riviera and Phoenix, because those are always pretty good fields. This one's up there too. You'll really see it at Heritage and like Wells Fargo. Those will be fields where you're like, whoa, like this is kind of disorienting. But I'm excited for this week. I'm interested to see if I think we all probably believe that Rory's going to top 10 and kind of do his usual thing at Bay Hill. If he putts well, he'll win. But if he doesn't, I think there's some kind of interesting talking points going into the rest of March and into April.